What does it mean for your evolutionary path to have the North Node placed in the sign of Taurus in your natal chart? Hi, my name is Nadia, and this video will be an in-depth look into the psychological implications and the evolutionary path of having North Node placed in the sign of Taurus and South Node placed in the sign of Scorpio in your birth chart. In Vedic astrology, we refer to the North Node as Rahu and the South Node of the Moon as Ketu, and these are the terms I'll be using from now on throughout this video. This is one of the more interesting and psychologically complex placements of the nodal axis in the chart, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But first, I wanted to give you an idea, a quick summary of what we will be discussing today. First, we will go into the main overriding theme of the Taurus-Scorpio axis. After that, we will take a deep dive into what it means to have the South Node or Ketu placed in the sign of Scorpio. What are the characteristics, the personality traits and tendencies when you have this placement in your natal chart? After that, we will discuss Rahu in Taurus or the North Node in Taurus, which indicates your growth, your evolutionary path, the lessons that you're here to learn and to integrate into your life. Then we will compare and contrast, so to speak, the two signs, Taurus and Scorpio. We will look at the commonalities and the dichotomies between the two signs. We will finish the video with some final thoughts on the growth potential of having Rahu placed in the sign of Taurus. Finally, I have prepared several mantras or potentially helpful affirmations that you can use in your journaling practice, or simply something to keep in mind as you're traversing this exciting but sometimes scary road of evolutionary growth of the North Node in Taurus. This video goes in detail about the sign position of the North and South Node of the Moon or Rahu and Ketu. If you're interested to find out what it means to have the North and South Node placed in each house of the 12 houses, I have a free ebook just for that purpose. It goes into detail about Rahu and Ketu placed in each house out of the 12 houses. You can download it by following the link in the YouTube description under this video. So what are the main themes of having this nodal placement? First of all, the Taurus-Scorpio axis is one of the most essential to understand in astrology, especially when it comes to security, both emotional and material security. When the South Node or Ketu is placed in Scorpio and the North Node or Rahu is placed in Taurus, we're being asked to shift our focus in a deep and transformative way. In essence, we're moving from an emphasis on emotional security, represented by Scorpio, to working on our material security, represented by Taurus. Ketu represents our default programming, our security paradigm, if you will. What feels familiar, what we cling to, even if it no longer serves us at some point. The problem with Ketu is that we expect too much of life to revolve around its sign and house because it's so firmly established in our psyche as the default setting. We try to apply these well-developed strategies to everything in life, and this can never be a winning approach, as different aspects of life require different approaches. It's like that expression, when you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. In Scorpio, this often means an overdependence on emotional intensity, psychological entanglement, or crisis-driven growth. It's a place we know well, but we may be stuck in. By the way, I go into more detail about what Rahu and Ketu represent in our chart in the introduction to this video about the Aries Libra Rahu Ketu axis. In contrast to the Ketu position, which represents our security paradigm, the patterns that we're very familiar with, something that we have a lot of experience with, Rahu, on the other hand, is about where we're meant to grow, but where we feel inexperienced and even vulnerable. We're fearful of the areas of life represented by Rahu, of these different ways of living and doing things, and our fears make us avoid developing them to a sufficiently working extent. So it's something that we're unfamiliar with and therefore quite fearful with, quite vulnerable with, but nevertheless, this is exactly where we're meant to be heading in this lifetime. In Taurus, this can feel particularly uncomfortable. We're being asked to develop practical stability, groundedness, and self-sufficiency, which can feel foreign if we've been living in the emotional underworld of Scorpio. We're asked here to shift our focus from the subjective to the objective, from the intangible to the tangible. The challenge with this axis is clear. We may over-identify and cling to certain emotional states, to profound psychological connections that make us feel safe, which is represented by Scorpio, while neglecting the importance of building a stable, peaceful, and materially secure life. But this is exactly where the growth lies. Ultimately, the two signs complement one another, and when developed well, they strengthen each other in a flow. The more secure we are materially, the more emotionally content we feel. The more psychologically balanced we are, the more capable we are of creating a stable, materially abundant life for ourselves. Opposites in astrology are never about choosing one and forsaking the other. They are mirrors of each other, asking to develop the seemingly opposite end of something which is ultimately the same thing deep down. In this case, to feel safe in the big wide world. Now let's move on to an in-depth description of what it means to have the south node of the moon being placed in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. These are some of the main associations of Scorpio. First of all, emotional containment and self-sufficiency. Scorpio is the sign of managing emotional highs and lows, having experienced profound love, devotion, grief, betrayal, excitement, and anger throughout many lifetimes before. Having the south node placed in Scorpio, you're an expert in managing and controlling your emotions. You know how to get to that balanced psychological equilibrium state without external help. You may have the tendency to be emotionally introverted. You may at times be too controlled when it comes to your emotions, having a strict code as to which emotions are to be fully felt, which to be transmuted, which expressed, and which concealed. Scorpio uses emotional states as an anchor. If you have Ketu in Scorpio, you feel secure by falling back into or clinging to certain specific emotional states. It's these emotional states and bonds that you feel anchor you in your life. You're very aware of your emotions and state of being, thus connecting with others on an emotional level also comes naturally to you. You innately enjoy contemplation and have the ability to be centered in your own mind, present with your feelings. In previous lifetimes and during your early upbringing, you've had a constant connection to something that you feel is bigger than you and goes beyond the material ups and downs, the practical reality of daily life. It can be a connection to spirituality, to a parent or a sibling, to the idea of belonging to a culture or ethnos, nationality, community, or family line. Having that strong emotional bond is what has traditionally been a priority for you and made you feel like this is how life works. Perhaps you were raised in an environment where spirituality was regarded highly, or feelings were communicated freely and without stigma, judgment, or repression. Perhaps your parental figures showed through their values and behavior that love or connection to one another, emotional closeness or devotion, or being part of something bigger were the things that were most important for sustaining a person or a family. So simply just having that connection to something that was prioritized far above any kind of material reality is what kind of sustained you in previous lifetimes. If you have this placement, not only does this background allow you to form very close, intimate bonds with the people you connect to, it also makes you very magnetic. As humans, nothing affects us more than the things that play on our emotions. So having that potent connection to the emotional realm makes people feel that they can explore their depths with you and bond on a deep level, which subconsciously feels very alluring to them. Water signs also rule our psychology, and particularly with Ketu in Scorpio, you probably have a heightened awareness of how you affect others and what makes people tick. No psychology degree necessary here. You're no doubt highly capable when it comes to understanding how the human mind and subconsciousness operate, even if you can't always put it into words or don't know why you know the things that you know. It's a very powerful attribute in a world where people's actions are mostly driven either by the emotions they feel, the emotions they're seeking, or the emotions they're trying to avoid. It's very hard for people to trick you and deceive you, as you have a sixth sense about people's true motives and intentions. Scorpio is also a feminine sign ruled by Mars. Mars here gives you a problem-solving mindset. Perhaps you view the world as a series of problems to be resolved, challenges and crises to be overcome. Just like fellow Mars-ruled Aries, Scorpio is adept at solving problems, but as a feminine and fixed sign, the approach here is quite different. Scorpio energy is more strategic, more calculated, more reactive than proactive. Mars also gives you focus and intensity. Ketu in Scorpio can give you highly focused energy, an above-average ability to eliminate distractions. When aiming for a desired emotional outcome, Scorpio energy has an exceptional ability to focus on a goal and be very tenacious and strategic about reaching it at all costs. You might get tunnel vision for the goal that you're craving, not resting until it's accomplished at a level to your satisfaction. Since Rahu is in a Venus sign, however, you don't always align your goals with what you truly need in life to be happy and healthy. Mars also rules our survival instinct, so Scorpio energy projects a lot of courage and can even evoke unconscious fears in others through the psychological charge that the individual possesses. It's a very different type of fearlessness and strength to that displayed by fellow Mars-ruled Aries. With Ketu in Scorpio, you're very mindful of not displaying what can be perceived as weakness. You may also be unwilling to ask others for help or to admit when you're struggling. With strong Scorpio energy and a natural feel for psychology, you instinctively understand that confidence is your best shield in life. You've learned that showing any kind of vulnerability can make you an easy target, so you lead with strength. Fueled by instinct, Scorpio energy projects a visceral don't mess with me quality. In nature, Scorpions don't go attacking randomly, but will hurt you if you hurt them. Being a martial but feminine sign, Scorpio represents a potent mix of masculine and feminine energy, which most people find irresistible. With Ketu here, you're probably very aware of the raw and effortless magnetism that you possess, and you perhaps use sexual energy on a subconscious level to get what you want. Mars is about expending energy to achieve a specific goal. Ketu in Scorpio folks tend to throw themselves ambitiously into things that they're hungry for. Mars represents our hunger and passion in life. You're not afraid of action and challenges. With Ketu in Scorpio, you're prone to be expending a lot of energy early in life, trying to achieve goals that you believe would align your life with what you're craving on an emotional and psychological level. And rather than going after things overtly, which is the MO of Aries, this pursuit can be more behind the scenes, subtler, with not much noise or big proclamations, simply doing what needs to be done under the surface to come out on top, victorious. The issue might be that early in life you're not aware of how to align your actions with what you truly need. You over-focus on the effort, on the striving, without taking enough time to understand what would end up being fulfilling and worth it for you. Being ruled by Mars, this South Node placement understands what it's like to go through tough times and survive. There is a history here of overcoming unimaginable hardship in previous lifetimes, and this ability to withstand anything that life may throw at you is imprinted in your subconsciousness. Most likely, you're one tough cookie. Now let's take a look at the Scorpion archetype and see what meaning we can derive by understanding the habits and nature of the animal, the Scorpion. First of all, historically, the Scorpion has been associated with transformation and alchemy. I actually Googled the transformations of the Scorpion, and this is what Google came up with. Scorpions shed their exoskeletons as they grow. The process, called molting, allows them to grow larger. While Scorpions don't appear to feel pain in the same way humans do during molting, the process is definitely stressful and can be dangerous. It's a vulnerable time for them as their new exoskeleton is soft and they're exposed until it hardens. Scorpio is the sign of transformation. With Ketu in Scorpio, you have gone through many ego deaths in the past, allowing you to obtain a certain psychological resilience that's not common. Moving through painful but necessary transitions, becoming stronger with each cycle. You're also able to transmute any feeling, thought, craving, or desire which you deem unworthy or unsuitable for your goals at this time, once again boosting your mental strength and ability to focus on your aims to the exclusion of everything else. Ketu and Scorpio people have a superpower, and that is that they can take a lot of emotional pain. They can also transmute and contain a lot on an internal level. The ability of Scorpions to attach themselves to surfaces similarly to insects or other arachnids is a representation of the tenacity of people with displacement. Their strategy for survival is partly dependent on this ability to hold tight onto something, a feeling, an idea, and not let go. Through all crises and obstacles, they can withstand what most people cannot and are able to survive crises and evolve through them. With your Ketu placed in Scorpio, you tend to cling to people, things, careers, houses, because you subconsciously find security in not letting go through difficulty. Your motto might be, as long as I withstand and just hold tight, in the end, things will be okay. There is a lot of loyalty here, attachment to things and people that bring a certain emotion, devotion, sense of belonging, sense of being complete and connected. Scorpions have a hard shell and a scary-looking exterior that hides a very vulnerable interior. In the past, you've learned to be very protective of your intense inner life and can be defensive. Scorpions are secretive due to their perceived vulnerabilities. They put on a scarier and more foreboding facade than they actually are. As a Mars-ruled sign, Scorpio projects strength and wants to evoke respect through fear, but not in an aggressive way. Rather, through a mysterious and unpredictable, potentially retaliatory and vindictive vindictive aura. If we imagine the scorpion, we right away think of the poisonous sting and their threatening posture. They seem to always be kind of ready to attack, and you never want to mess with them really. Scorpions are very vulnerable and frightened animals, but you would never know it. People develop phobias about them due to the way they portray themselves. This is a protective mechanism, a dedication to feeling secure through defensiveness. In nature, scorpions frequently hide in burrows or other type of holes. As Scorpio is a water sign, people with displacement function best when given enough time for solitude and contemplation to sit with their thoughts and feelings and process them. This tendency to hide in holes symbolizes their secretive nature. Once again, due to past life experience, they've learned that it's safer to hide a lot of their inner workings from others and be very selective about who they let into their emotional world. The survival instinct is a very big theme with Scorpio. If you have Ketu in Scorpio, you're used to reacting correctly, that is, promptly and effectively in a crisis situation. This includes ego deaths. You have experience in surviving through big shocks to the ego. You know how to react as a capable and strong individual when there are threats to the ego or to your material survival. You may subconsciously put yourself in extreme or overly challenging situations due to being familiar with surviving and overcoming in crisis of various types. This is how our minds work. We always look to create familiar environments, as this is what makes us feel safe, even when in reality such conditions can be far from objectively safe or comfortable. In summary, these are the strong qualities associated with having Ketu in Scorpio: needing emotional security to feel centered, tenacity and psychological strength, crisis management abilities, strong survival instinct, strong passion and focus in life, as well as a talent for alchemy and transmutation. Now let's look at the qualities of the sign of Taurus, and these are basically the qualities that you're here to develop in this lifetime. When you have the North Node being placed in Taurus, everything that we're going to discuss that is associated with the sign of Taurus, these are qualities, habits, and strength that you reincarnated to develop further and further in this lifetime. On the whole, the big lesson of Rahu in Taurus is that emotions are important, but we still have a body that has material needs, and we need to take care of them day in, day out. It's a big part of life and should not be overlooked. Moon in our chart represents Jiva, the life within us, the separate consciousness, and it is exalted in the sign of Taurus. The moon is exalted in Taurus. This indicates the hugely important role Taurus plays when it comes to our fulfillment and health, because the moon represents our needs as a separate individual on earth. The following are qualities associated with Taurus, and when you have your North Node in the sign of Taurus, these are attitudes and qualities you're here to work on and develop more and more. First of all, Taurus is associated with practicality, realism, logic, rational thinking. Emotions take a backseat to practicality here. Taurus prioritizes common sense and seeing things from an objective, down-to-earth perspective. Material needs and obligations. Taurus is the second sign. It comes right after Aries. Aries, as the beginning of the zodiac, is all about ideation and the birth of our sense of self. We establish who we are and have ideas about ourselves and the world around us, as well as ideas of where we want to go in life. As the next step, which is Taurus, we're getting down to business. How do we stay alive? How do we get stronger? How do we go about putting our ideas into actual practice? Through various resources, assets, and basic skills to obtain them. And these are all ruled by Taurus. It's the sign of the tangible expression of our individualized selves. Taurus represents stability, groundedness, solid foundations. This is where the idea of self solidifies. Taurus is also associated with tangible outcomes, material manifestation. In the end, theories, emotions, ideas, and creativity are only as good as we can put them to work and practice here in our earthly existence. And this is the purpose of the earth element, to materially manifest, to bring things into real, actual existence. In this reincarnation, you're learning the value of creating stable, practical foundations to your life and actions, establishing working routines, perfecting the foundational skills of life, acquiring practical tools and useful possessions, nurturing and maintaining mutually sustaining relationships with family and close ones. Those are the domains that you're here to practice in, and the more you devote time and energy to these, the more you will see your life working out better and better, and you will not only feel more safe and fulfilled, you will also need less of your martial, instinctual crisis management skills represented by Scorpio, as a lot of the troubles that you're technically able to handle will simply be avoided through wise choices made in the past. Taurus is a feminine sign ruled by Venus. Once again, the big theme here is in getting our needs met, because this is what the moon is about, and this is where moon is exalted. Venus is also about getting our needs met out in the real world on planet Earth, having access to nutritious, tasty food, comfortable and practical surroundings, high quality objects that make our lives easier and more efficient, nurturing long-term mutually beneficial relationships, everything in life that creates the conditions for us to be comfortable, satiated in life is ruled by Venus, and this is what Rahu in Taurus is here to learn to implement into their lives. Taurus rules most of our senses, and it's associated with our face, and this is where most of our sensory organs are placed. With Rahu in Taurus, you may have the tendency to neglect your senses, but we were incarnated into a physical body for a reason. We have senses for a reason. Suppressing our needs is not good for us and can make us sick. As spiritual beings in physical bodies, our evolution is also tied to our physical experiences here on Earth. The nourishment from the world helps us to evolve, and we need to get involved with our senses in healthy ways rooted in self-love. Both Taurus and Venus are strongly associated with the concept of value and also with our own self-worth, how we value ourselves, what we subconsciously believe we deserve. When we have Rahu placed here, there is an inherent lack of self-worth in us, either in past lives or in our early upbringing, or both. We experienced material lack somehow. We weren't given validation from our friends or family. We had a lack of quality material belongings, for example, or perhaps we didn't have access to quality food. As a consequence, we go about life not expecting or requiring the best for ourselves. Rahu in Taurus wants you to work on your ability to receive from the world, from others. You're learning to truly feel deserving of good things in life, to be receptive of all the comforting, nourishing, satisfying things the world can realistically give you, and to feel genuinely comforted and nourished by them. There are several options here. Perhaps you just completely ignore your material desires and needs, or go into the extreme of constantly craving them, constantly trying to buy, to accumulate and obtain more and more pleasures, material assets, comforts and luxury. But deep inside, you never feel satiated by them, never getting the actual benefit from the good things in life. There is a famous yoga in Vedic astrology. Yoga is a combination of placements in the chart, which comes about when Venus is placed in its own sign or its sign of exaltation and also placed at an angle. It's meant to grant you so-called unperturbed senses. This is when a person is able to derive genuine pleasure and rejuvenation from the basic comforts and beauty in life. Then there is no element of greed, desire, or insatiability in the person, because the inner experience of nourishment and enjoyment is already present. Venus is the planet of evaluation, of knowing the true costs of things, measured in money, energy, resources, but especially time, as this is our most limited resource on Earth. Rahu being placed here means the person needs to develop that in his lifetime to truly start grasping the real cost and worth of everything in life, from belongings to contacts and relationships. There can be a tendency for short-sightedness with this placement when it comes to making decisions. You're learning to weigh your options and make wise, long-term, beneficial decisions that you won't regret down the line. Venus is not about pleasure for pleasure's sake. It's vital for us to have periods of rest, recuperation, enjoyment of the senses, relaxation of the mind and body. Otherwise, burnout and illness creep in. You're learning to incorporate genuine pleasure and enjoyment of life's simple pleasures in your life for the sake of regeneration and health in all areas of life. Balance and harmony and win-win situations are also big themes here. When Ketu is placed in the martial sign, there can be a tendency to go into extremes, to go all in on things, which can create a lot of imbalance in a person's life. Mars can be a pushy, aggressive planet and can get lost in the pursuit of its desires. With Rahu in Taurus, you're learning to understand the importance of keeping in mind everything in your life, all the spheres that need tending to, in order to have a well-functioning experience. You're learning to see things from other people's perspectives too, and make sure that your focus, dedication, and tenacity don't end up harming your important relationships, both personal and business. It's hard to balance everything in life, and this is the role of Venus, reminding us that nothing should be emphasized so much in our life that it causes everything else to deteriorate. You're also learning about the beauty of having balance and harmony in your life. Stepping out of survival mode that was required in previous lifetimes, you're now learning that not everything has to be a struggle, a fight, a push, a crisis, or a competition. Now let's see what meaning we can derive about this placement from the archetype of the bull, which is the symbol of Taurus. I have a whole video explaining all about Taurus energy, Taurus symbolism and archetypes, which you can find in the link. Now, some of the themes here overlap with the symbolism of Venus, which we already described. For example, comfort and material abundance. Cows and bulls are a symbol of plenty, of nourishment, of having enough sustenance and abundance to survive and be comfortable in the world. The stock market has the bull as its main symbol. So bulls are indeed associated with financial prosperity. Due to early upbringing patterns, you may struggle to attract material abundance. You may have grown up with conditioning that makes you feel undeserving of good things, like you're not worth investing in, spending time, money, or effort on. Thus, you grow up with an inability to be receptive to material validation. Even when money, compliments, awards come your way, there is still an inner belief that this is all just temporary. You simply don't believe that you're worthy of receiving the best in life. I just want to briefly mention a very important side note here. Rahu and Ketu, or the north and south node of the moon, are just mathematical points in the sky. They don't represent embodied planets and as such cannot attract specific concrete events into your life. So on their own, they're not predictors of anything specific happening into your life. How much money you're going to have, what position or profession you're going to have, these are not related to Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu are about psychology, about our evolutionary path of our soul in this incarnation. So it's all about the mindset, the paradigms in our minds. So when we mention about issues with material validation, we just mean what we feel inside, how we perceive things, not necessarily how much money we have, okay? The bull archetype is also associated with high quality goods and assets as well. Bovines, similarly to other mammals, have mating rituals revolving around the females being selective of the male, looking for signs of health and strength in order to ensure healthy and strong offspring as well. While Ketu and Scorpio is about being able to survive and transform through crisis, about transmuting one's needs, with Rahu and Taurus, you need to learn to recognize, receive, and utilize material things which are of good quality and serve you well. Don't neglect your needs. Tend to them with care and self-love. There are also themes here about developing lasting beneficial relationships, mutual support with others, being valued and valuable. Now, if we think of the agricultural era in the development of humanity, historically bovines have provided a lot of goods that humans relied on, for example, dairy, hides, plowing power. And in return, they received safe surroundings, comfortable lodging, fresh grasslands, and the ability to coexist with the rest of the herd. With Rahu here, you're learning to objectively evaluate what you bring to the table, to recognize all of your qualities, strengths, contributions to others, and in return to receive what you're worth for beneficial cooperation. The lesson is to leave environments where you're not appreciated or treated fairly, given what you're worth, and instead go where your needs are met, your abilities and strengths are seen and respected by others, and where you yourself can contribute in the best way possible, thereby further strengthening your own self-worth. The bull also represents solid physical foundation, so you're learning to create a materially safe life for yourself and those you care about. The moon, the planet of our needs, is exalted here because not having to stress about getting our physical needs met also paves the way for a healthy emotional life as well. But it's impossible to maintain emotional equilibrium and happiness when our physical health and safety is on the line. Taurus is also about being predictable, responsible, and reliable. Just like in the past, rural people have been able to rely on the abundance of resources and goods provided by cattle, you too need to learn to be reliable when it comes to the value you provide to others and subsequently to yourself. Taurus is about consistently being there with an energy of calm and trustworthiness, never neglecting your material responsibilities to yourself and those who rely on you. In summary, these are the main areas for you to work on in this lifetime, and they will take time to balance out and will be especially working better from the age of 42 onwards. That's when Rahu matures. So establishing and maintaining stability and solid foundations in life, connecting with your resourcefulness, emphasizing material survival, approaching life with practicality and rationality, developing and perfecting your self-worth, as well as emphasizing responsibility and reliability in life. What are the commonalities between Taurus and Scorpio? So what are things that you've already developed in previous lifetimes, qualities and attributes that you already possess that you can utilize also in this reincarnation to further grow into your best self? First of all, both Scorpio and Taurus are fixed signs. The positive aspect of the fixed signs is that they usually manage to achieve success in certain areas, if not for any other reason than purely due to consistency. If we pick a lane and stick with it long term, inevitably we gain from that area due to our experience, contact, and skillfulness. Having Ketu in Scorpio, you're already used to finding security in the fixedness and consistency of your emotional connections. Your pattern is to have certain go-to emotions and emotional states that provide you with an emotional safe space, something that anchors you in life and makes you feel safe. Your challenge is now to apply the same tactic to the realm of physical reality. Learn to be consistent with your financial and practical goals and tasks, and you will see gradual but inevitable improvements in all areas of life. In this lifetime, you're learning to find a sense of security through the practical approach to life that you're adopting, as well as through the tangible assets that you've acquired through your skills, consistency, and the value you bring to the world to others. Also, both Scorpio and Taurus are feminine female signs. Feminine signs are more receptive, contemplative, and passive. With Ketu placed in the water sign of Scorpio, your background is in being receptive to the environment's emotional and psychological landscape, being attuned to others and adapting your actions to respond in a way that is most beneficial for you. You tend to be emotionally reactive rather than proactive, contemplating your actions before proceeding. With the North Node in the Earth sign of Taurus, you're moving towards being receptive to the material and practical circumstances of life. Your winning strategy is to start taking advantage of the tangible opportunities that life presents to you and making the most of them through diligence, consistency, and quality output. Now let's look at the placement of Taurus and Scorpio in the zodiac wheel. As we already discussed, the second 8th house axis is all about creating a foundation of security in our lives. That's why these are such sensitive and important points to master. With Ketu being placed in Scorpio, the 8th sign, you have a background in deriving security from others, benefiting from connections, as well as being fearful of being hurt from connections. Both Scorpio and the 8th house are about psychological security in relation to others. You're familiar with dealing with the ups and downs in life, surviving crisis and transforming, evolving, improving through them. With Rahu in Taurus, which has second house connotations, you're learning to find security in yourself and through your own practical efforts, as well as through your belongings and assets of all types. As life progresses, you will be relying more and more on your own strengths, resources, and abilities to create a safe and satisfying life for yourself. With age, you learn to enjoy the responsibility of managing your life in a practical way for long-term sustenance and stability, both for yourself and those you feel responsible for, such as family and close friends that you can also rely on in times of need. I don't want to go too much into the tamas versus rajas dichotomy, but just to briefly mention that Scorpio is a tamasic sign and Taurus is a rajasic one. Tamas is the motivation to act in order to avoid problems and suffering. Rajas, on the other hand, is the motivation to act in accordance with what life presents to you, and it's a more willful and opportunistic way to live life. With your North Node in Taurus, you're here to shift your worldview from one over-focused on the negative sides of life, like a fear-based approach to life, to one where you're simply participating in the flow of life. Learn to take life one step at a time, focus on what's right in front of you, and take advantage of what opportunities are available and present. We're going to proceed with just a few additional divine messages for you for your evolutionary path indicated by Rahu and Ketu. First of all, crisis versus smooth sailing. Ketu in Scorpio makes you strong in a crisis, as we already discussed. You're used to handling tough situations, staying calm when things fall apart, and pushing through no matter what. But Rahu in Taurus is teaching you that life doesn't always have to be so intense. You're learning to build a steady, secure life where problems don't explode into chaos, where you can avoid the drama before it even starts, just by being grounded, prepared, and practical. The next divine message, which comes with this nodal axis, is to evolve from hardship to comfort, from surviving to thriving. Ketu in Scorpio remembers what it means to survive, to push through hardship, to endure the impossible. But life isn't only about getting through the storm. Rahu in Taurus teaches you how to let life nourish you, how to receive comfort without guilt. You're learning that it's safe to enjoy, to rest, to feel fulfilled, not just to survive, but to truly thrive. The next step in the evolutionary growth towards the North Node in Taurus is the dichotomy of abstract versus concrete and cravings versus worth. Ketu and Scorpio can make you feel like deep emotional ties and intense connections matter more than anything else in life. But Rahu in Taurus is asking you to step back and ask, is this really helping me live a better, more balanced life? Does this person, idea, or situation actually support my well-being in a real, practical way? Or is it keeping me stuck in something that drains me? Whenever we have the North Node placed in a Venusian sign, a question that we always need to ask ourselves is this really worth it? Because there is just a lack of background in evaluating things properly for their long-term effects and long-term benefits to us. So if you get into the practice of constantly asking yourself, is this really worth my time? Is this worth my energy? Is this worth it for me? Is this suitable for me in the long term? Or will I regret this down the line? This is something to kind of keep in mind always whenever you're making, especially when you're making big decisions in life. The final theme here with these nodal placements is about dependence versus self-sufficiency. Ketu and Scorpio draws you towards deep emotional bonds and total devotion, often without expecting anything in return. But Rahu in Taurus is here to teach you the value of your own energy. It's about learning to take care of yourself, to build a life that feels solid and supportive, one that gives back to you in real practical ways. Finally, I wanted to leave you with some mantras that can help you on your Rahu Ketu journey. You can maybe write them down in your journal and go back to them once in a while to remind yourself of the path that will be most beneficial and healing for you, the North Node path. Mantra number 1. It is safe for me to build a life of comfort, peace, and stability. This mantra affirms moving away from emotional turbulence towards steady, grounded living. My needs matter. I honor them with care. This reinforces self-worth and honoring the body and senses. I release crisis. I thrive in calm and consistency. This mantra addresses the shift from crisis-driven Scorpio to Taurus ease. The more I care for my body, my resources, and my environment, the more life supports me. This affirmation encourages embodiment and earth element engagement, a reminder of Taurus self-nurturing and manifestation. I trust in the steady path. Slow growth is still powerful growth. This mantra affirms the Taurus pace and journey. I bring value by showing up, being reliable, and nurturing what matters. This affirmation reminds us of Taurus's strength through dependability and practical action. I deserve high-quality experiences, relationships, and nourishment in any form. This mantra encourages embracing Venusian pleasure and self-worth. Every small, wise choice I make today plants the seed for my secure future. This mantra is about channeling the wise decision-making qualities of Venus. I feel safe in both connection and self-reliance. This bridges Scorpio's need for emotional entanglement with Taurus's self-sufficiency. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to your comments about whether this video resonated with you if you have this placement in your birth chart. You can check out what readings and personalized offers I have available by following the link in the description below. You can also download a free ebook about each of the 12 houses, what their practical meanings and manifestations are. This really deepens your astrological knowledge. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to meeting you in the next video.